I've already shared parts of my personal experience navigating work cover in Queensland and going through a 2.5-year legal process from date of incident to settlement of my personal case after pursuing legal damages through common law. If you're someone who has experienced a psychological injury in an Australian workplace and you haven't watched my work cover video series and you're seeing me here for the first time, please go and watch a few of those videos. I think that you'll find them very helpful, especially if you're considering to make a claim, you are moving through your work cover process, you have no idea what to do, there's no accessible information on who to ask, how to navigate this whole journey, especially without any legal guidance. I created that video series because it's all the information that I wish I could have known in the lead up to pursuing a common law path, how long the process would take, and also to connect with other people actually who'd also been through it, because it was a very isolating experience and there is nobody to ask for this information and to go to find other people who have been through this process does not exist online. I want to make one thing really clear. I am not a lawyer and I'm not sharing legal advice or legal guidance. This is only my personal experience that I'm sharing, and the information that I'm providing on YouTube and on my social media is solely from the experiences that I've had in Queensland. Every person's circumstances and claims are completely unique and so different. So I highly recommend seeking a specialized employee relations lawyer to give you the correct advice for your claim, what to actually expect relating to your particular story, because everybody's experience is completely different. It's now been almost 1.5 years since the settlement of my claim and when everything ended, and just over 4 years when the workplace incident occurred. And now looking back and looking at the last 4 years of my life and how much time was invested into my healing process, my individual healing journey, and the consequences as well of pursuing legal damages. A lot of people need to be prepared to really understand what that actually entails and why the process can also be incredibly damaging itself, and it's not going to be right for everybody. When I shared my story just over 1 year ago, that was when I had hundreds of messages come in. People who had been sexually assaulted, sexually harassed, bullied in the workplace. 95% of these messages were from women. And it was the people who had either submitted a work cover claim, they didn't even know how to submit a work cover claim, or they were in the process of it being approved, or they had been on work cover and were now considering taking further legal action. I'd even had messages from people who had been on work cover for over 5 years. One of the longest timeframes that I'd heard of someone being on work cover was for 9 years. And in retrospect, when I personally think of, my process of from incident to settlement being a 2.5-year period, that was a very, very long time for myself. And knowing that there are other people who have been on work cover for these extended amounts of time, energetically, your nervous system is still actually connected and tied to this workplace, this legal case, this particular person, this trauma. And what usually happens is you're having these repetitive conversations with psychologists and psychiatrists. And yes, to a point, talk therapy and psychology can be incredibly helpful to a point. But if you're not getting any progress from psychiatry and psychologists and talk therapy after several years, that might not even be the right modality for you. And there might be other avenues and other options that are worthwhile to try and to be able to actually truly heal your nervous system, because being on work cover and having a percentage of your income being paid to you for a period of time is helpful. But when it gets to a point where it's years in, that's going to now start becoming a detriment, because now there's this reliability on this payment and it's not even what you were initially earning, at the top of your income threshold initially, pre-incident. Why I say this as well is because I also worked under the NDIS for almost 5 years. So I've worked with a lot of clients who are on families and, who are on NDIS benefits and have different compensation coming in to support them. And while this is an amazing service that we have in Australia that many other countries don't even have, this level of service, especially for when you're talking about mental health and complex disabilities, how amazing that we have access to these services, but it can be a detriment to a point of reliability and relying so much on an external monetary service where your independence is actually being taken away from you if it's not monitored or managed correctly. WorkCover is very different to NDIS and completely different levels and an array of psychosocial disabilities, mental health challenges, and all of the labels that we put on people who have autism and ADHD and bipolar disorder and complex PTSD. And at the end of the day, what I have noticed within that type of working experience, and then also going through a WorkCover process, 2.5 years, I was 10 months on WorkCover payments. And then following that, I was earning my own income again, coaching, and I was also working in the NDIS again, having this foundation and this structure of, this ability to earn your own income and make a difference in other people's lives, whether that's through your business, your work, your career, and getting paid to do that. The whole point of that is creating this foundation to be able to build on top of that. So where I'm getting with that is that WorkCover can provide you this breathing space and this breathing room to rebuild and heal your nervous system and heal your body and have that extra space to actually recover and be so intentional with your recovery, because your life and your career and your relationships and literally everything else is depending on this recovery time. You can't force recovery and you can't put timelines on your recovery. That holds people back even more, and then people get disappointed when they get to a certain point a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, and their nervous system hasn't made any form of growth, and it's the same as it was 3 years ago. The recovery period should really intentionally be about rebuilding your life, your body, your foundations. We can't build anything creative and anything great from a body that is sitting in chaos and sitting in a reactive state constantly, and we don't have the room to recuperate and recover. So yes, you have the space, you have the financial support temporarily, but the goal should not be to rely on this compensation. The goal should not be to rely on a possible damages claim and compensation in the future. The goal should be to heal your nervous system, spend this time recovering and healing, and rebuild your life in an even more beautiful way around this recovery time. It also doesn't mean that you need to rush back into your job right away, rushing back into your career right away or another career right away. Some of the stories that I have heard, which has not been beneficial to other people's experiences, and these people that I've been speaking to throughout the last year since I shared my story, if you're rushing your recovery, if you're rushing your will to get back into work, to get into the same job, a new career, start something new, and you're trying to force yourself back into normal life or what life was like before the incident or before your nervous system went into full-blown PTSD and panic attacks, if you try to rush a recovery before you are ready, you are most likely going to just set yourself back even further. What you most likely will go through is an identity death, and the person that you were before this is gone, is no longer there, and you have this opportunity now to recreate a whole new identity for yourself and to let go of a lot of the emotions that we hold on to when we experience PTSD. We experience such a reactive state of mind and being. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's taken me years, But my days have been so intentional with the goal was always healing my nervous system. I knew that the more intentionally that I focused on that, my foundations would be ready to actually grow something from a solid foundation and to attract in the things in my life that were built on a solid nervous system and not from a reactive state and not from a state of survival or fear-based or trying to chase something because we didn't want to sit with ourselves and actually figure out what was going on with our emotions and within our own mind. I'll tell you right now, one of the most beautiful lessons that I personally received from this experience was building the most beautiful relationship with myself and having a connectedness and a whole new level of self-belief and self-respect and self-love than I ever have before in my life. And to be able to get to that level was me prioritizing my body, my nervous system, my foundations, and being okay to continue my growing and my healing journey, letting people go who didn't actually understand. When I first shared my story in the lead up to me filming the first video, which was the introduction to a work compensation process in Queensland, I would look at myself in the mirror every day, every morning. I would tell myself, Alyssa, this is not about you. There are other people out there who need this information, who need to hear my experience to know that there is hope and that they can also overcome PTSD or whatever mental health challenge that you have personally experienced or are going through. It was hard, and trust me, I have grown up witnessing severe mental health challenges. So I had already known, and even after working with several as well, after working with several psychosocial disabilities and different mental health challenges within, like I said, the NDIS. I know how difficult it is, and I know that it's not as simple as do some journaling, write your emotions out, go for a walk, get some sunshine. It's not that simple. And people's experiences are really different because people who grow up with really strong and solid support systems, there are other people who grow up without that. So depending on your own circumstance and your own personal experiences growing up, how much support you have from the people around you is a huge factor in moving through traumatic events and moving through traumatic experiences. So the people who don't understand mental illness are the people who have never experienced a loved one go through a serious mental health challenge. They've never lost someone to suicide, or they've never witnessed someone attempting suicide, or they've never yet been through their own mental health challenge. I'm sidetracking a little bit, but when we talk about grief, for example, and when you lose someone and someone dies in your life and they physically, it could be, completely unexpected and whatever, it might be a car accident, for example, or it is someone, that you've lost to suicide, however that person has gone, that type of grief of losing someone physically and they're not here anymore is a very different type of grief to experiencing a loved one go through a mental health challenge year after year after year after year after year. It's a different type of grief. So everybody's experiences are so different. Everybody's families are so different. Everybody's support systems are so different. And that is why do not put a timeline on your personal healing journey, because my support system will be different to your support system. My healing modalities and what helps me is going to be different to what helps you. So going back to WorkCover, don't rush the process, but also do not lose sight of the life that you are rebuilding. The people who reached out to me online after sharing my experience, those people helped me too. To feel seen by these people who were also experiencing what I had experienced was actually incredibly comforting, and it did genuinely open my eyes up to the power of the internet and the power of being able to connect with people who you relate to and who you resonate with. So yes, I did experience PTSD. I experienced significant career loss, which went with grief and experiencing my own grief of an identity and an old version of myself, which now that I also kind of think about that now, there were several periods of identity losses and shifts and changes in my life. It was not linear. It was absolutely like this. My overall intention was healing my nervous system, but I would create small intentions throughout this process and throughout the last few years. One in the beginning being my intention was to improve my sleep, because my sleep at the time was the worst it had ever been. Any of you that have been through PTSD will know that you cannot sleep. You're incredibly hypervigilant. Your body is on constant alert 24/7, and your body is not resting, so it can't reset. It's not repairing any of the cells that need to be repaired when we sleep at night to wake up and feel refreshed and feel energized. So sometimes I would sleep 12 hours and I'd still be exhausted. But I also want to give you hope, and I also want to share with you that that was not where my story ended, and it's not something that I also allowed to define me. Every experience in my life, looking back, I do not regret one thing in my life, because every single experience has taught me something that has shifted me on a completely different path. Every person that has come into my life has taught me something that I needed to learn about myself to, again, shift my path and get onto a better path. Every single experience has taught me something that has built on the foundations of the relationship that I have with myself. And again, this trust with other people, because when we can trust ourselves, that's when we can trust other people. And we become incredibly more discerning of our environment, the people around us, and what we are willing and not willing to tolerate. And what, again, is the basis of the level of love that we actually hold for ourselves. We have to have this relationship with ourselves, otherwise we cannot pour into other people. We'll be reactive with other people, upset or angered easily by other people's behaviors and other people's actions. Those things have nothing to do with us. Pour back into yourself, because once you do, every aligned relationship will automatically come into your life, and it'll be so easy, and you'll feel safe and you'll feel connected, and you'll feel just completely safe to just show up and be yourself. So if you're watching this and you are currently in your own journey, roller coaster of a process, I'm not here to tell you how it's exactly going to fold out, because again, your process will be different to my process. Your healing is different to my healing. What works for you might not work for me, vice versa. All I'm here to tell you is that there is a life on the other side of this. If you intentionally use this time to pour back into yourself, create this strong foundation within your body, and have this amazing relationship, and you begin then building from this safe and secure foundation, everything that you create beyond that is truly going to be so special, so much more aligned. You'll be so much more discerning of which is the right path to take next, which is the next chapter, the next season that I am stepping into, because all the evidence that you have in the past of overcoming everything that you have invested in yourself, that is enough evidence to build this solid foundation that you have. I can assure you that sometimes the most life-altering experiences are the very thing that actually leads you back to yourself.